The moment you lose your hunger, you start losing your edge. That's the truth most people don't want to admit. Success doesn't disappear overnight. It fades when you stop chasing it like you once did. You have to stay hungry, not just in the early days when everything is new, but every single day you're alive. Hunger is what keeps you from settling for less. Hunger is what pushes you to go beyond what feels safe. Without it, you drift. You slow down. You accept average when you're capable of more. Think about it. Are you still working with the same urgency you had when you were starting out, or have you let comfort make you softer? Every achievement you've had so far is just the beginning if you refuse to settle. In this session, we're going to break down how to keep that hunger alive so you can keep growing, keep achieving, and keep becoming the best version of yourself. Chapter 1. Remind yourself daily why you cannot slow down. You wake up every morning with two choices. You can either move forward or stand still. Most people choose to stand still, not because they are lazy in every area of life, but because they forget why they need to keep moving. When there's no reason in your mind that pushes you, you slow down, and once you slow down, life has a way of keeping you there. If you want to live a life that is full of progress, growth, and results, you must remind yourself daily why you cannot slow down. The truth is, energy fades when purpose fades. If you don't have a reason that keeps you awake at night and gets you out of bed in the morning, you will start making excuses without even realizing it. That's why you must bring that reason back into focus every single day. Not once a month, not when you feel like it. Every single day. If you allow your hunger to fade even for a short time, you'll start making decisions that lead you away from your goals. Think about the times in your life when you moved the fastest, when you were focused, when you gave everything you had. Those were the times when your goal was clear. You could see it. You could feel it. That's why you didn't stop. Now, ask yourself, what's the difference between that version of you and the version of you right now? Most of the time, the only difference is that you've forgotten your reason. You cannot rely on motivation to keep you going. Motivation is a feeling. It comes and goes. If your progress depends on how you feel, you will never be consistent. What works is reminding yourself of the facts about why you started, the facts about where you want to go, the facts about what happens if you stop. These are not feelings. These are reminders that give your actions meaning. So how do you do this in daily life? Start by putting your reason somewhere you can see it. Write it down in a place that forces you to face it every day. It could be a note on your desk, a card in your wallet, or even a message on your phone. The point is not where you put it. The point is that you see it. And when you see it, you remember why slowing down is not an option. Then, speak your reason out loud each day. There's something powerful about hearing your own voice say it. When you speak it, it becomes real again. It's not just a thought passing through your mind. It's a commitment you're making to yourself in that moment. Another way to stay connected to your reason is to measure your progress daily. People slow down because they convince themselves they are moving when in reality they are standing still. If you don't check your progress, you won't notice when you're drifting. But when you measure, you can see exactly where you are and where you're not. That's when your reason comes back into play. If you're falling behind, your reason will push you forward, and you have to protect yourself from the distractions that make you forget. There are conversations, environments, and habits that pull your attention away from your purpose. They make you comfortable. They make you think you have time. You don't have unlimited time. Every day you waste is a day you never get back. That's the reality. If you keep that reality in front of you, you'll feel that urgency again. Some people slow down because they've already made progress and think they can relax. But the moment you think you've done enough, you start to lose the discipline that brought you this far. You have to treat each day as if you're starting again. No matter what you did yesterday, today requires new effort. Yesterday's work will not carry you through today's challenges. You also need to know exactly what's at stake if you slow down. Ask yourself, what will I lose if I stop giving my best? How will my life look in a year if I keep moving at the same pace I'm moving now? If the answer doesn't excite you, then you know you have to speed up. Reminding yourself daily is not about being obsessed, it's about staying aware. Awareness is what keeps you from drifting. If you don't check in with yourself every day, you will start to accept smaller results, lower standards, and less effort. That's how people lose their hunger. They don't notice it's happening until it's too late. Here's something important. Your reason might change over time, and that's okay. What matters is that you always have a reason that feels urgent and personal to you. Don't rely on someone else's reason. If you are working for something that doesn't truly matter to you, you will burn out. Make it about you, your family, your freedom, your future, your potential, your life. Some people wait for a crisis to get serious. They wait for a health scare, a job loss, or a big problem before they start moving again. But if you wait for pain to push you, you waste years of your life that could have been spent building. That's why you don't wait. You remind yourself now, you decide now. One of the best ways to keep your hunger alive is to put yourself in situations that require you to perform. If you know you have a deadline, an event, a presentation, or a meeting that demands your best, you won't slow down. So give yourself those deadlines. Sign up for challenges. Commit to things that make you feel the pressure to deliver. And when you feel tired, remind yourself that tired doesn't mean done. You can rest, but don't stop. The difference between those who succeed and those who quit is often one more step, one more day, one more push. When you see people who are far ahead, don't just look at their results. Remember that they stayed hungry long after others stopped. Every night, take a moment to think about what you did today to move forward. Did you act like someone who truly wants it? Did you give enough? Or did you let yourself coast? That small reflection keeps you honest. If you know you didn't give your best, you go to bed knowing tomorrow must be different. And here's something you need to understand. Hunger is not built in a single moment. It is built and rebuilt every single day. You cannot keep it alive by thinking about it once in a while. You must feed it daily, with action, reminders, and progress. If you do this, if you truly remind yourself every day why you cannot slow down, something changes in you. You stop negotiating with yourself about whether you feel like working. You stop needing permission. You stop waiting for the right moment. You know that every day counts, so you make every day count. That's when the results start to stack up. That's when the momentum becomes part of who you are. That's when people look at you and say, they never stop. And they're right. You don't stop, because you've made the decision that slowing down is not an option. You'll notice over time that staying hungry doesn't just affect one area of your life. It shapes everything. Your health, your relationships, your career, your confidence. They all grow when you stay driven. And it all starts with a simple daily choice. Remember why you must keep going. So when you wake up tomorrow, before you do anything else, bring your reason to the front of your mind. Think about it. Say it out loud. Look at it, written in front of you. Feel it. Then act on it. Because the moment you forget, the moment you slow down, you start moving away from the life you could have had, and you have no reason to let that happen. Not if you want more, not if you know you're capable of more, not if you've decided that you have to stay hungry. Chapter 2. Replace lazy routines with actions that build your drive. If you want to stay hungry for growth, you can't keep doing the same routines that drain your energy and waste your time. Most people live on autopilot. They repeat habits that feel comfortable but lead nowhere. They spend hours on things that don't matter and then wonder why they feel stuck. If you want to move forward, you have to replace those lazy routines with actions that build your drive. Not once, not occasionally, but as a new standard for how you live. The first step is being brutally honest about what's actually holding you back. You can't fix what you refuse to admit. Look at your daily schedule and ask yourself, what am I doing that brings no real value to my life? You already know the answers. It could be mindless scrolling on your phone. It could be sleeping in for no reason. It could be starting your day without any plan. These are not small things. They shape the way you think, the way you feel, and the results you get. When you let lazy routines run your life, they slowly weaken your hunger. You lose the urgency to work. You lose the fire to improve. You start accepting less from yourself without even realizing it. That's why change has to be deliberate. You can't just hope better habits will show up. You have to create them. Start with your mornings. The way you begin your day decides how the rest of it will go. If your morning starts with hitting the snooze button, lying in bed, and letting your thoughts drift, you're already training your mind to delay action. Instead, wake up and do one thing that gets you moving immediately. It could be exercise, reading something that fuels your mind, or starting on your most important task. The point is to start strong, so you set the tone for the day. Next, look at how you spend your idle time. Those hours between tasks are either wasted or invested. Wasted time feeds lazy habits. Invested time builds your drive. Instead of letting your mind wander aimlessly, use that time to learn, plan, or take care of small but meaningful actions. You don't need every moment to be intense, but you do need to stay intentional. A major reason people fall into lazy routines is because they don't challenge themselves enough. They do just enough to get by. If you want to stay hungry, you must set goals that stretch you. When your goals are too easy, you lose interest. When they're big enough to demand your focus, you wake up with a reason to push. Every time you set a standard that's higher than what you've been doing, you break the pattern of laziness. Another powerful shift is replacing consumption with creation. Many lazy routines are built around consuming, watching, scrolling, listening, without producing anything. When you spend more time creating something valuable, whether it's for yourself or others, you naturally become more driven. Your energy changes when you're building, instead of just taking in information. You also need to remove the triggers that lead to lazy behavior. If you know your phone distracts you, keep it out of reach during work. If watching TV after dinner turns into hours of wasted time, change that environment. Drive is not just built by willpower, it's built by designing your surroundings so they push you to take action instead of tempting you to slow down. Track your habits daily. This is how you make sure lazy routines don't sneak back into your life. At the end of each day, write down what you did that pushed you forward and what held you back. If you see the same lazy action showing up more than once, remove it. Don't wait until it becomes a permanent part of your routine. One of the most effective ways to build drive is to connect your actions to a bigger reason. When you know why something matters, you do it with more focus. Lazy routines often survive because the actions that replace them feel meaningless. But when you see the connection between your daily choices and your long-term goals, those actions start to matter. And when they matter, you keep doing them. It's also important to remember that building drive doesn't mean filling every minute with work. You need rest, but your rest should be intentional. Resting to recharge is different from avoiding work. When you rest with purpose, you come back stronger. When you rest out of habit, you weaken your momentum. Learn to tell the difference. Surround yourself with people who live with urgency. If you spend time with those who make excuses, you'll start to think excuses are normal. If you spend time with those who take action, you'll feel uncomfortable doing nothing. The people around you influence your drive more than you realize. Choose them wisely. Don't underestimate the power of structure. Drive grows when you know exactly what to do and when to do it. If your days are unplanned, you'll default to lazy habits. Set clear times for work, learning, exercise, and rest. Follow that schedule until it becomes second nature. A good structure doesn't limit you. It frees you from wasting time deciding what to do next. Replace easy tasks with actions that require effort. Lazy routines survive because they're effortless. They demand nothing from you. But effort builds hunger. When you consistently do things that challenge your mind and body, you feel more alive. That feeling becomes addictive in the best way. You start to seek out challenges instead of avoiding them. Be willing to do the uncomfortable work before it becomes urgent. Many people delay tasks until they have no choice but to act. That habit kills drive. If you want to stay hungry, do the hard work while you still have time. It builds discipline, and discipline is the foundation of lasting drive. Hold yourself to the promises you make. Nothing kills hunger faster than breaking your own word. If you say you'll work out, do it. If you say you'll finish something today, do it. Every time you keep your word to yourself, you strengthen your drive. Every time you break it, you weaken it. Learn to see progress as fuel. When you replace lazy routines with actions that matter, you'll start to notice small wins. Don't ignore them, recognize them. Let them remind you that what you're doing is working. Those wins give you the motivation to keep going even when the work is hard. The truth is, lazy routines don't just waste time, they waste potential. Every time you choose comfort over action, you choose the life you have now over the life you could have. And if the life you have now is not the one you want, you can't afford to keep making that choice. Drive is not something you're born with. It's something you build through action. And action starts with replacing the things that hold you back with things that push you forward. You don't need to make 100 changes at once. Start with one. Replace one lazy routine today with something that builds your hunger. Then do it again tomorrow, and again the next day. Over time, your old habits will disappear, not because you forced them out, but because you no longer have space for them. Your life will be filled with actions that demand your focus, your effort, and your energy. That's how hunger stays alive. If you want to look back a year from now and see real change, this is where it begins. Not with big speeches or sudden bursts of motivation, but with the quiet decision to stop living on autopilot, to remove what's holding you down, to fill your days with actions that keep your fire alive. That's how you move from a life of wasted time to a life of constant growth. And that's how you stay hungry long enough to reach the goals you've been chasing.
Chapter 3. Keep proving to yourself that you can do more. Most people stop at the point where they feel they've done enough. They reach a target, finish a task, or hit a certain level, and then slow down. But if you want to grow, you can't let that be your stopping point. You have to keep proving to yourself that you can do more. Not to impress other people, not to compete with anyone else, but to see how far you can actually go. The truth is, most limits are not real. They're created in your mind by the belief that what you've done so far is all you're capable of. You don't find out your real capacity until you push past what you think is the end. Doing more doesn't mean you have to make huge jumps overnight. It's about setting a standard where you never settle for your first attempt being your final effort. If you can run 2 miles, try for 2.5. If you can make 10 sales calls in a day, push for 12. If you can write for 30 minutes, go for 45. That extra effort doesn't just increase your results, it changes how you see yourself. Each time you go further than you thought you could, you prove that your limits are temporary. The danger in stopping when you feel comfortable is that your comfort zone shrinks over time. The less you push, the less you feel capable of. Before you know it, things that once felt easy start feeling like challenges. But when you keep testing yourself, you make progress the standard. You train your mind and body to expect more. That constant growth becomes part of your identity. One way to keep proving you can do more is to set challenges that make you slightly uncomfortable. Not challenges so big that they overwhelm you, but ones that require you to give a little extra. When you win those small challenges, your confidence grows. That confidence fuels your hunger, and that hunger makes you ready for bigger challenges. This process keeps you moving forward without burning out. It's also important to track your efforts, not just your outcomes. Many people only measure success by results. If they don't see immediate gains, they stop trying. But growth doesn't always show up right away. Sometimes the real progress is happening in your mindset, discipline, and skill level before it becomes visible in results. By tracking what you actually do, how much time you put in, how much effort you give, you can see the improvement that isn't obvious at first glance. To push yourself further, you have to remove the safety nets that let you stop early. If you know you can quit without consequences, you will. Instead, create situations where you must follow through. Make commitments that require you to deliver more than you normally would. Sign up for events, agree to deadlines, or tell someone you trust exactly what you're aiming for so they can hold you accountable. Pressure can be a powerful motivator when used the right way. Another reason people stop short of their potential is because they rely too heavily on how they feel in the moment. If you only work harder when you're inspired, you'll never find out what you're really capable of. The real breakthroughs come on the days when you don't feel like doing more, but you do it anyway. Those are the moments when you prove to yourself that discipline is stronger than mood. When you keep proving to yourself that you can do more, you stop fearing hard work. Hard work becomes familiar. You don't see it as a punishment. You see it as an opportunity. Each time you push beyond your old limits, you learn that the discomfort doesn't last, but the pride of finishing does. That pride stays with you and fuels you for the next push. A powerful method to discover your true capacity is to take your current target and ask, what's the next step beyond this? If your goal is to save a certain amount of money, ask how much more you could save if you cut one more unnecessary expense. If your goal is to get in shape, ask how much stronger you could get if you added one more set to your workouts. These small intentional increases compound over time and can lead to major progress without you realizing it at first. You can also learn from the moments when you thought you couldn't do more, but still did. Think back to times when you were exhausted, ready to stop, but something made you push through. Maybe it was a deadline, a promise, or simply not wanting to let yourself down. Remembering those moments can remind you that your first feeling of "I'm done" is rarely the truth. You almost always have more in you. It's worth paying attention to the people who consistently perform at a high level. You'll notice that they have a habit of stretching themselves. They don't stop when they reach average results. They stay curious about their own potential. They test themselves regularly. Not because they doubt themselves, but because they know growth is never finished. One of the best ways to make this mindset permanent is to set a baseline for yourself and never fall below it. For example, decide on a minimum number of hours you will work on your goals each week. Decide on a baseline for your health, your learning, or your performance. That baseline becomes your normal, and from there you can always try to go beyond it. Over time, your baseline will rise naturally, and what once felt like a stretch will feel like routine. Sometimes, proving you can do more means being willing to try again after you fail. It's easy to stop after a setback, because failure can feel like proof that you've reached your limit. But if you treat failure as feedback, it becomes another way to grow. You learn what didn't work, adjust, and push forward with better strategy. Every time you do this, you're showing yourself that obstacles don't define your limits. Your persistence does. You also have to be careful about comparing your more to someone else's. Your goal is not to do more than the person next to you. Your goal is to do more than you did yesterday.
Chapter 4. Refuse to settle until you hit your real target. Most people give up long before they reach what they truly want. They stop when they hit a level that is good enough, not realizing that settling for less than the real target leaves them with regret later. If you want a life you are proud of, you have to refuse to settle until you hit your actual goal. Not the halfway mark. Not the safe version, the real one. The one you first imagined when you decided you wanted more out of life. The one that still matters to you even after the excitement has faded. The reason most people stop short is because the middle point feels comfortable. Once they get some progress, they convince themselves that it's better than nothing, and they lose the urgency to keep going. But comfort is dangerous. Comfort tricks you into thinking you've made it when, in reality, you're still far from where you could be. If you allow yourself to stop there, you never see your full potential. Refusing to settle means being honest with yourself about what you really want. You cannot reach a target you haven't clearly defined. Too many people start with a vision, but then lower their expectations when things get hard. If your goal changes only because you're tired or discouraged, it's not an adjustment, it's a compromise. And every time you compromise with yourself, you train your mind to accept less. The real target is rarely easy to reach. It will demand more time, more effort, and more resilience than you thought you had. You will face setbacks that make you question whether it's worth it. This is the point where most people give up. But if you decide early on that stopping before the finish line is not an option, you build a different mindset. You stop looking for the fastest way out and start looking for the most effective way forward. One of the most important things you can do is to keep your target visible every day. Write it where you can see it. Remind yourself why you chose it. Keep asking yourself, am I there yet? If the answer is no, you know the work is not finished. That simple question cuts through excuses. It forces you to measure your actions against your actual goal, not against a temporary level of progress. You also have to be willing to extend the timeline if necessary. The truth is, most worthwhile targets take longer than you expect. If you base your effort only on how fast you get there, you will quit when the deadline passes. Refusing to settle means staying committed even when it takes more time than planned. The goal doesn't lose value just because it takes longer. It gains value because of what you become in the process. To stay committed, break your big target into smaller checkpoints. Each one should bring you closer, but none should be treated as the end. Celebrate progress, but don't confuse it with completion. This prevents you from losing momentum after a small win. When you finish a checkpoint, ask, what's next? This keeps your focus forward instead of letting you get stuck in satisfaction. Refusing to settle also requires protecting your mindset from people who think you're already doing enough. Friends, family, and colleagues might tell you that you should be happy with where you are. While they may mean well, their view is based on their own standards, not yours. If you listen to them, you risk adopting limits that don't belong to you. Surround yourself with people who push you to keep going, instead of convincing you to slow down. It's important to remember that the final stretch before reaching your target often feels the hardest. You've already put in so much effort, and the temptation to stop is strongest here. But this is where your decision to refuse settling becomes your advantage.
If you've trained yourself to keep going no matter how close you are, you'll finish while others quit. Another strategy is to review the cost of stopping too soon. Ask yourself, if I walk away now, what will I lose? This question forces you to think beyond temporary relief. You may save some energy in the short term, but you'll lose the chance to see what you're truly capable of. You'll lose the satisfaction of completion, and you'll carry the thought of what if for years. That's too high a price for stopping early. You must also set clear standards for the quality of your result. Hitting a target is not just about arriving, it's about arriving with the level of excellence you want it. If you reach your goal but cut corners to get there, you won't feel the same pride. Commit to doing it right, even if it means more work. The process shapes you as much as the outcome does. At times you will need to make sacrifices to stay on course. This might mean giving up certain comforts, cutting back on distractions, or saying no to opportunities that don't align with your target. Sacrifice is not a punishment, it's a choice to prioritize what matters most. Every time you choose your target over something easier, you strengthen your commitment. You should also keep a record of your progress along the way. This is not only for tracking results, it's for reminding yourself of how far you've come when doubt sets in. When you see the work you've already put in, you realize how much you'd throw away if you quit now. That reminder can give you the push you need to keep going. Refusing to settle means holding yourself accountable even when no one else is watching. It's easy to keep going when people are cheering you on, but the real test is when the only person who knows whether you gave your best is you. In those moments, you decide the kind of person you are. Are you someone who stops when it's comfortable, or someone who keeps going until the job is done? To build that level of discipline, focus on making progress daily. Even small steps matter, as long as they move you toward the real target. When you take consistent action, you reduce the power of doubt. You don't waste energy debating whether you should continue, you simply keep moving because it's part of who you are. There will be times when you have to adjust your approach, but adjustment is not the same as settling. Adjustment means finding a better way to reach the target, not choosing a smaller target. Learn from what's not working, improve your strategy, and keep pushing forward. The commitment is to the destination, not to the specific path you first imagined. Finally, remind yourself that reaching your real target is not just about achieving something, it's about proving to yourself that you follow through on what you start. That trust in yourself is worth more than the achievement itself. When you know you can count on yourself to finish, you carry that confidence into every other area of life. When you refuse to settle until you hit your real target, you set a standard for your entire life. You become someone who finishes what they start, who values the original vision enough to see it through, who doesn't trade long-term fulfillment for short-term comfort. That kind of commitment changes you. It builds a level of self-respect and resilience that will stay with you long after you've reached your goal. And once you've lived that way, you'll never accept less from yourself again. Chapter 5. Find reasons to work when no one is watching. The real test of discipline is not how you perform when the world is watching, but how you act when there's no audience, no recognition, and no one keeping score. Many people only work hard when they expect praise or when they know their efforts will be seen. But lasting success is built by what you do in the quiet moments, the hours when it's just you and the task in front of you. If you want to grow beyond average, you have to find reasons to keep working even when no one is there to notice. When no one is watching, you are free to take shortcuts. You can do less than you promised yourself. You can delay your efforts, and because no one else will call you out, it becomes easy to justify. But every time you allow that, you weaken your own standards. You teach yourself that your commitment only matters when someone else is involved. That is not the mindset of a person who stays hungry. To work consistently without an audience, your motivation has to come from within. External validation is short-lived. It fades as soon as the applause stops. Internal drive, however, stays with you because it's tied to your personal values, your goals, and your self-respect. If you want to build this kind of drive, you need to connect your daily actions to a purpose that matters deeply to you. When the reason is real, you don't need an audience to push you. One way to strengthen this mindset is to decide who you want to be when nobody is around. Are you the kind of person who needs recognition to stay disciplined, or are you someone who delivers the same effort regardless of who's watching? The answer comes from your actions, not your intention. If you want to be the second type, you must set personal standards so high that they don't depend on anyone else's opinion. Working without an audience also teaches you to value the process more than the reward. When you put in effort simply because you know it's the right thing to do, you shift your focus from seeking approval to building mastery. You stop asking, will someone notice this, and start asking, did I give my best? That change makes your work more consistent, because it's not driven by unpredictable outside factors. You can make this easier by tracking your own progress in detail. When you're working alone, you need something to measure against. Keep a record of your actions, hours, and results. This way you're accountable to yourself. You can see if you're improving, slipping, or staying the same. Without measurement, it's easy to believe you're doing enough when you're actually falling behind. Another powerful reason to work when no one is watching is the trust you build in yourself. Every time you follow through on your commitment privately, you strengthen that trust. You start to believe your own word. That belief becomes a huge advantage, because if you can rely on yourself in the quiet, you will be unstoppable in public. Many people crumble under pressure because they don't have that private foundation. They only work well when others push them. There's also a practical truth. The work you do in silence is often the difference between good and great. The hours spent refining a skill, studying, or preparing in private are the ones that create confidence later. By the time others see the result, the real work has already been done. That's why the quiet hours matter more than the moments in the spotlight. If you struggle to work without recognition, you can train yourself out of it. Start small. Pick one task each day that you will do entirely for yourself, without telling anyone. It could be reading, practicing, exercising, or building something. Do it purely for the satisfaction of knowing you followed through. Over time, you'll stop craving the need for others to notice, because you'll find pride in the action itself. Working when no one is watching also makes you more resilient. In life, there will be times when no one understands your effort or supports your vision. If your ability to work depends on outside encouragement, you'll stop at the first sign of silence. But if you're used to self-driven work, those silent stretches won't affect you. You'll keep going because that's simply who you are. You can also find strength in the idea that unseen work is never truly wasted. Skills compound, habits grow stronger. Knowledge builds. Just because no one sees the effort today doesn't mean it won't pay off tomorrow. Chapter 6. Use every setback as fuel to push even harder. Setbacks are not just events that slow you down. They are moments that reveal how much you actually want the goal you're chasing. When things don't go your way, when plans fall apart, or when you face a loss you didn't expect, you have two choices. You can either use it as a reason to stop, or you can turn it into fuel to push even harder. The people who keep moving forward despite difficulty are not born with some special advantage. They've simply learned how to convert pain, frustration, and disappointment into determination. The first step is to change how you see setbacks. Most people treat them like signs that they should give up, but a setback is often a clear sign that you're in the middle of progress. The very fact that you encountered resistance means you were moving. If you were standing still, nothing would have pushed back. When you face a challenge, you're being given an opportunity to decide whether you're going to keep going or settle where you are. Using setbacks as fuel starts with owning them. You can't control everything that happens, but you can take responsibility for how you respond. Blaming circumstances, people, or timing might feel good in the moment, but it doesn't move you forward. Taking ownership keeps you in the driver's seat. It forces you to ask, what can I do next to make this better? That question alone shifts your focus from what's wrong to what's possible. Another key is to extract lessons quickly. Every setback contains information you didn't have before. Maybe you learned that your preparation wasn't enough. Maybe you saw a weakness in your plan. Maybe you discovered that your patience or discipline wasn't where it needed to be. Whatever the lesson is, it's only valuable if you act on it. Treat the setback as a training ground. Use what you learned to build a stronger version of yourself, so that when a similar situation happens again, you're ready. Turning setbacks into motivation requires emotional control. The natural reaction to a setback is frustration or self-doubt. If you let those feelings take over, they will drain your energy and make you hesitant to act. Instead, channel those emotions into action. Let your frustration push you to try again with more intensity. Let your disappointment remind you of why you started in the first place. Let your anger toward failure be the fire that keeps you from repeating it. You can also reframe the setback by looking at the bigger picture. One difficult moment does not erase all the progress you've made. Too many people throw away months or years of work because of one bad week or one lost opportunity. A setback is not the end. It's a page in the story. When you see it as temporary, you're less likely to let it define you. Some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are the ones who have faced repeated setbacks and kept going anyway. They don't see a closed door and turn around. They look for another way in. That mindset doesn't come from comfort. It comes from repeatedly proving to themselves that they can recover. Every time you push through a setback, you build resilience. And resilience makes you faster, stronger, and more determined for the next challenge. One powerful tactic is to set a response plan before setbacks happen. If you already know how you'll react when things go wrong, you won't waste time in shock or panic. For example, if a project fails, your plan might be to review what went wrong within 24 hours, identify 3 changes to make, and then restart with the new strategy. Having this kind of plan keeps you from staying stuck too long. You also need to pay attention to your self-talk after a setback. The way you speak to yourself shapes what you do next. If you say, "This always happens to me," you reinforce the idea that you can't win. If you say, "I'll figure out a better way," you open the door to solutions. Replace hopeless language with action-focused language. Sometimes the best fuel comes from remembering what's at stake. Ask yourself, what will happen if you give up now? Think about the opportunities you'll miss, the skills you won't develop, the confidence you'll lose. Then ask yourself, what happens if you push harder instead? Chapter 7. Talk to people who inspire you to aim higher. The people you speak to on a regular basis shape how you think, how you act, and how much you believe you can achieve. Conversations are not just exchanges of words, they are exchanges of ideas, energy, and belief systems. If you spend most of your time talking to people who are content with staying where they are, you'll slowly start to think that aiming low is normal. But when you spend time with people who challenge you to think bigger, take bolder actions, and refuse to accept limits, something inside you changes. You start to see possibilities you didn't see before. You begin to realize that the standards you've been living with might be far below what you're truly capable of. Talking to people who inspire you to aim higher is not about seeking approval or copying their path. It's about surrounding yourself with voices that push you to expand your own. These conversations spark ideas you would never have on your own. They give you insights from people who have already walked further than you have. They challenge the excuses you've been repeating to yourself. And sometimes in a single conversation, they can give you the push you've been avoiding. The first step is to identify who those people are in your life. They're not always the loudest or the most visible. Sometimes they are the ones quietly building, staying disciplined, and making steady progress toward their goals. These are the people whose actions match their words. They don't just talk about what's possible, they live it. They make you think, if they can do that, I can do more too. Once you know who inspires you, you have to be intentional about spending time with them. This might mean seeking out mentors, joining groups, or building friendships with people who have higher standards. It could mean reaching out to someone you admire and asking for their perspective. It could also mean stepping into spaces where you're the least experienced person in the room. That might feel uncomfortable at first, but that discomfort is exactly what helps you grow. When you talk to people who aim high, you notice that their mindset is different. They don't spend much time complaining. They focus on solutions. They ask better questions. They challenge assumptions. Being around that way of thinking changes the way you see your own challenges. You stop saying I can't and start asking how can I? That shift alone can raise your level of action. One of the most valuable parts of these conversations is the accountability they create. When you tell someone with high standards about your goals, you feel a stronger need to follow through. Not because they'll punish you if you don't, but because you don't want to show up with excuses when you could be showing results. You begin to hold yourself to a higher level simply because you've surrounded yourself with people who expect more. It's important to remember that inspiration is not about constant praise. In fact, the people who push you the most often challenge you the most. They will point out when you're playing small. They will question whether you're doing all you can. At times their honesty might feel uncomfortable, but that's how growth works. If all you hear is agreement and reassurance, you'll never feel the need to stretch beyond your current level. You also have to give as much as you take in these relationships. Don't approach people just to see what you can get from them. Share your own progress, your own lessons, and your own encouragement. A mutual exchange builds trust and makes the connection stronger. Chapter 8. Train your mind to want the next level. The way you think decides how far you will go. If your mind is trained to be satisfied with your current position, you will stop as soon as you feel comfortable. But if your mind is trained to keep looking for the next level, you will keep moving forward, no matter how much you have already achieved. Wanting the next level is not being ungrateful for what you have. It's about refusing to let your growth stop. It's about seeing every milestone as a checkpoint, not the finish line. Training your mind to think this way takes effort because the natural human tendency is to relax once progress is made. You hit a goal, you feel relief, and that relief can make you slow down. The danger is that if you stay in that relaxed state too long, your hunger fades. Before you know it, your skills, discipline, and drive begin to weaken. To avoid that, you must develop the habit of asking yourself, what's next? Immediately after reaching a goal, that simple question forces your brain to stay in growth mode. One of the most effective ways to train your mind for the next level is to expose yourself to examples of people operating at a higher standard than you currently are. When you see what is possible, it expands your sense of what you can achieve. If the only examples you see are people working at your current level or below, you'll have no reason to believe you can do more. Seek out stories, environments, and people that make your current success feel like just the beginning. Your mind also responds to the expectations you set for yourself. If you set goals that are too easy, your brain gets used to low effort. Over time, it accepts mediocrity as normal. But when you set goals that stretch you, goals that make you work harder, think deeper, and stay focused longer, you teach your mind to adapt to higher demands. This repeated stretching is what builds the desire for the next challenge. The next level has to mean something personal to you. It's not enough to chase it because someone else thinks you should. If your next step is only about impressing others, your motivation will fade quickly. You need to connect the next level to something that matters deeply in your own life: your growth, your vision, your independence, your ability to take care of the people you care about. When the reason is personal, the drive lasts longer. Another key part of this mental training is learning to see improvement as a lifestyle, not a temporary project. If you treat growth as something you do only when you feel like it, your results will always be inconsistent. Chapter 9. Do one thing daily that scares you to try. Growth rarely comes from what feels safe. Most of the progress you want is hiding behind actions that make you nervous, uncomfortable, or uncertain. If you only do what feels easy, you repeat the same results over and over again. That's why you need to make it a daily habit to do at least one thing that scares you to try. It doesn't have to be huge, but it has to be something that forces you to step into discomfort. Over time, this habit rewires how you see fear, not as a sign to stop, but as a signal that you're about to grow. Fear is a natural reaction to the unknown. Your mind wants to protect you from possible failure, rejection, or embarrassment. But most of the time, the danger isn't real. It's imagined. The fear you feel is often just a reflection of how much the action matters to you. If it didn't matter, you wouldn't feel it. This is why facing those small fears daily is so powerful. Every time you push through, you collect proof that fear is not as big as it seems. The first step is to identify what actually scares you. For some people, it's speaking up in a meeting. For others, it's trying a new skill, asking for help, or putting their work out into the world. The specifics don't matter as much as the feeling. If it makes you hesitate, it qualifies. Each day, pick one of those actions and commit to doing it, no matter how much your mind tries to talk you out of it. The key is to start with manageable challenges. If you jump straight into something that completely overwhelms you, you might freeze. Instead, build your tolerance. Think of it like training a muscle. Start small, but be consistent. If you're scared of networking, start by introducing yourself to one new person. If you're afraid of criticism, share a small piece of your work. As you succeed with small steps, your confidence grows, and you can tackle bigger fears. What makes this practice so effective is that it builds momentum. When you face one fear today, tomorrow's challenge feels less intimidating. Chapter 10. Never allow comfort to replace your hunger for growth. Comfort can be one of the biggest threats to your future. It doesn't arrive with warning signs. It doesn't feel like danger. In fact, it feels good, safe, easy, familiar. But that's exactly why it's so dangerous. When you start to enjoy comfort too much, you slowly stop pushing yourself. You stop chasing the next goal. You stop challenging your limits. And the most dangerous part is that you don't notice it happening. One day you look around and realize you're no longer growing. You're just maintaining. That's why you must never allow comfort to take the place of your hunger for growth. Growth is not something that happens by accident. It's the result of consistent effort, deliberate decisions, and the willingness to keep moving forward even when you don't have to. The moment you start thinking you've done enough, you begin to lose the edge that got you here in the first place. Comfort whispers, "You've worked hard, you deserve a break." And while rest is necessary, letting that rest turn into long-term complacency is where people lose everything they've built. Hunger for growth is a mindset. It's waking up each day knowing there's more to learn, more to achieve, and more to improve. It's not about dissatisfaction with where you are. It's about refusing to believe that this is the highest you can go. Comfort tells you to slow down because things are good enough. Hunger tells you that you're capable of more than just good enough. One way to keep your hunger alive is to regularly put yourself in situations that challenge you. When everything around you is easy, your skills start to weaken. Just like muscles shrink when you stop training them, your ambition fades when you stop challenging it. Seek out opportunities that make you stretch your abilities, that force you to learn, and that require you to show up with your best effort. These challenges keep you sharp and stop comfort from settling in. You also have to be careful about the kind of environment you surround yourself with.